What if Pokemon existed in Demon Slayer? Have you imagined how battles between Demon Slayers and demons would go? With the existence of Pokemon, have you ever imagined a Pokemon turned into a demon? How dangerous and powerful could a demon Pokemon be? But here's a challenge for you. It's a very interesting question, and I doubt you'll guess what each Hashira's favorite Pokemon is. Think carefully, because this question will be answered throughout this story. Now, look, in the universe of Demon Slayer, especially in ancient times like the Taisho era, Pokemon wouldn't be used for sports and competition. Friendly, with many dangers present, and a life without technological advancement, Pokemon would be used to help with daily activities, like Fire-type Pokemon helping to light campfires in cold times, Water-type Pokemon putting out fires, Grass-type Pokemon helping to create medicines, and some helping to treat the wounded. Even though technology wouldn't advance, the usefulness of Pokemon would make society recognize their value and domesticate them to help with their own purposes. So, notice that when our story begins, when Muzan attacks Tanjiro's family, the young Kamado, who had gone to deliver coal, comes rushing back, riding on his Charizard just in time to find his family taking their last breaths in shock. He puts everyone on his Charizard and asks it to fly to the nearest doctor with his family. Even though it's a Pokemon big enough to carry more than one person, Tanjiro's family is quite large. Soon he carries Nisko on his back and goes down the mountain. Unfortunately, Nisko turns into an Oni and attacks him, but she is quickly frozen by the Pokemon. Gyu's legendary Suicune. Gyu warns Tanjiro that there is no salvation for his sister. He intends to exterminate her right there, but wants young Kamado to close his eyes, sparing him from the pain. Please! Tanjiro refuses and is willing to fight for Nisko's life, despite Tanjiro's resistance. Suicune decides to freeze him as well, but Charizard arrives in time to rival Suicune's icy beams, protecting his master Tanjiro. Thanks to the heat of the battle caused by Charizard, Nisko awakens from the ice just as Gyu is about to knock out Tanjiro, and she stops him, showing that she also wants to protect her brother. Soon after, when Gyu puts her to sleep with a slap, they take them to Urokodaki to begin his journey as a Nisko hunter and to seek a cure for his sister. This time, the fighting methods of the Oni hunters are quite different. They use Pokemon to increase their attack power against the Onis, gaining advantages even against the Upper Moons. Soon, Rokodaki proposes training to Tanjiro along with his loyal companion Charizard, turning him into a true Pokemon for battle. Unfortunately, despite Charizard and Tanjiro's efforts to take their family to a doctor, they were not able to save them. Soon, Charizard would also be committed to training to avenge the family that took such good care of him throughout all the years until he grew up. From Charmander to Charizard, when Tanjiro sets out on his missions alongside his Charizard, Nezuko, the battles against the Onis become ridiculously easier, since Charizard melts the Onis in flames, purging every cell of their bodies. At Kyogai's mansion, Tanjiro meets Zenitsu with his loyal companion Pikachu and Inosuke with his foster brother Penipple. Exactly, this time Inosuke was raised by a family of Peniples instead of boars. The three of them go together to Mount Natagumo to face the spider Onis. While Pikachu clears the way by electrocuting the smaller spiders, Zenitsu is free to finish off the larger spider Oni, exterminating it more easily. Thanks to Pikachu's help, Zenitsu wouldn't be poisoned, ready to move on to another battle. And on the other side of Mount Natagumo, we see Inosuke and his partner facing the demon father, Spider, who is too powerful for both of them to handle together. However, the determination of this duo is impressive. They keep going together, fighting against the ONI with all their strength, but it's useless. When Inosuke was about to have his head crushed by the demon father Spider, in a burst of anger and pure determination to save his foster brother, Penipple evolves into Nihile, who unleashes a powerful blast of ghost power on the demon father Spider, giving Inosuke the perfect chance to decapitate the Oni. However, with no more strength left to fight, Tomioka arrives, riding his Suicune, freezing the Oni's body, and then turning the Oni's frozen body into ice cubes. Moving on to the battle of Tanjiro, Nezuko, and Charizard against Rui. Charizard's claws help Tanjiro break free from the Oni's webs. However, that's still not enough to stop him, until Nezuko awakens her Kekijutsu, burning the Oni's webs and clearing the way for Tanjiro to decapitate him, but without success. Tanjiro realizes that he needs to develop his sword skills until, cornered by Rui's webs, he unlocks the memories of his father's dance. Thus, he awakens Hinokami Kagura, decapitating Rui. But before the ONI can show that he escaped Tanjiro's attack with his guard down, Charizard instantly burns all of the ONI's cells. The Spider-Onis battle is finally over. However, Shinobu arrives along with Kanao and their Pokemon. They warn that Mount Natagumo is surrounded by Ghost-type Oni Pokemon waiting for the hunters to kill them. Another fierce battle. But what about you? Do you know which Pokemon belong to Shinobu and Kanao? If you think they're legendary, you're way off. Take a look. Noticing Nesco, Shinobu asks her Venusaur to wrap Nesco in its vines so that Kanao can decapitate her easily. However, before she can get away, Charizard stops her with its Fire Breath, starting a fight against Kanao's Butterfree and Shinobu's Venusaur. Fortunately, Zenitsu can still fight alongside the hunters. He quickly joins the fight, stopping Kanao while his Pikachu stuns Shinobu with Thunder Shock. Thanks to Charizard's fire element being superior to the Oni Hunter's Pokemon, he wins this battle with relative ease. However, the Oni Pokemon arrive, causing chaos among the hunters and their Pokemon. With everyone exhausted from the battle on Mount Natagumo, there are only a few strong hunters left to deal with this threat. However, all it takes is one Gyu Tomioka and his legendary Suicune. Being a legendary Pokemon, Suicune is able to stand up to multiple strong Pokemon, especially when it comes to Tomioka's skills. As a Hashira, only this duo is needed to put an end to this threat of Oni Pokemon. Now, watch. At the Hashira meeting, Buyashiki accepts Nezuko into the organization. And if we look at the original storyline, since he defeated a lower moon, Tanjiro would become a Hashira, even with the help of his Pokemon. However, in this timeline, thanks to the support of Pokemon, the Hashira have to work even harder to achieve such a position. Since the lower moons are defeated more easily by the hunters, and seeing this, Muzan eliminates his lower moons, leaving only Enmu. Assigning Tanjiro and his friends to the Infinity Train alongside Rengoku, the strategy for observing the train changes. While Rengoku and the others are inside the train, Tanjiro flies overhead. The same goes for his Charizard, detecting the threat from outside. When the train merges with Enmu and turns into pure flesh, this time Charizard can't use all of his firepower so as not to hurt the train's passengers. However, he manages to get Tanjiro face to face with Enmu, neutralizing the Oni. But when the train derails and the house appears, the presence of the Oni would frighten everyone. Even the hunter's Pokemon would be frozen in the face of so much power, except for Rengoku and his Pokemon. The house praises Rengoku for earning the trust of a legendary Pokemon, just like Rengoku himself. He feels a huge disgust toward the house for turning an innocent Pokemon into an Oni to increase its flesh and workshop against the innocent. And before this battle begins, I want to ask you, do you know which Pokemon belongs to our warriors? And most importantly, will Rengoku survive this battle thanks to his legendary Pokemon? Before you find out, I want you to comment below your favorite Pokemon. Now I need your help. To reach the milestone of 200,000 subscribers, you can help me. Just subscribe to the channel with the notification bell on, and if you're already subscribed, share this video with all your friends. I'm sure they'll be very grateful for that, and I'm also very grateful for your support. You can help me even more by liking this video. It doesn't even take 3 seconds, thank you. With the start of the fight between both warriors, Rengoku and Akaza's Pokemon enter an epic showdown. On one side, Entei, the legendary and loyal Beast of Flames, who has been in the Rengoku family's line of hunters for generations. On the other side, Lucario, a powerful, agile Pokemon and a skilled warrior. Unfortunately, things are not going well for our Flame Hashira and a bonded Pokemon like Lucario with centuries of existence. Close to matching Entei, who would be distracted from the fight, worried about his master. However, Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Zenitsu's Pokemon would join the fight against Lucario, allowing Entei to help his master. Making Akaza increase the pace of the battle, turning it into an insane contest, Akaza is pressured by Entei's flames and the attacks of the Flame Hashira. In the end, with the appearance of the sun, Rengoku still has plenty of energy to fight against Upper Moon 3. However, the sun's weakness prevents Akaza from continuing the fight. Before fleeing, Entei uses his Lava Plume attack, turning much of the ground into lava and preventing the Oni's escape movements. Akaza is then stopped by Kyojiro, who holds him until dawn. The same goes for Lucario, who is forced to stay until the sun's rays appear. Another battle won. In the Hunter's next mission, they join Tengen Uzui and his Green Ninja. Both make a great duo, thanks to their combination of ninja style. When the Hunters detect the threat of Daki, Gyutaro appears. This time, these Upper Moons don't have an Oni Pokemon by their side, since it could attract a lot of attention in the entertainment district. Therefore, the battle is extremely easy. Daki is pressured by Zenitsu and Inosuke with their Pokemon, and Gyutaro would have to deal with the strong flames of Charizard and the combined attacks of Uzui and his Greninja. While Tanjiro supports them, because of this ease, Tanjiro would not unlock the Demon Slayer mark and would not damage his sword. Not going to the Swordsmith village, this could leave the village in trouble, right? Actually no, even Mitsuri and Mutiru in the original timeline without the Demon Slayer mark wouldn't be a match for Upper Moons 4 and 5. Here, even with their Pokemon to help them, the Swordsmith village is also protected by special Pokemon assigned to the care and protection of the village. In other words, the village has super strong security, but does that mean the village won't be invaded? On the contrary, it will be invaded, without a doubt, because Muzan wouldn't miss this opportunity. But this time, an ONI who wanted to take part in this mission would go along with Upper Moons 4 and 5 to help them. So, how would this battle happen and who would this ONI be? Is it possible for Mutiru and Mitsuri to survive? Now, watch! With the invasion of the village, the blacksmith's Pokemon protect them against Gyoko's demonic fish while they evacuate the blacksmiths. Meanwhile, Mitsuri can move forward to face those responsible for the destruction of the village. She comes across Genya still fighting Rantango's clones alongside his Rondon. When Mitsuri joins the battle with her Jigglypuff, the clones are put to sleep and are all quickly decapitated by the Love Hashira, with the original being decapitated as well. Next to Genya, Mutiru was about to face Gyoko, the Upper Moon 5 thanks to Mutiru's Pokemon. They have a psychic connection that helps Mutiru face Gyoko's insane attacks, since Ispion has a prediction ability helping to avoid and anticipate attacks. With this vision, it only takes fractions of a second for Mutiru to anticipate where Gyoko will teleport, decapitating Oni without much difficulty. The biggest problem is yet to come. With a strong icy presence, Duma releases a powerful freezing air that starts to make it hard for the Rasheras to breathe, flooding the entire village in a great wave of ice. The hunters join forces against Duma, who was standing next to his Pokemon Onigali, an ice-type Pokemon that kept everything around frozen. Jigglypuff and Mitsuri couldn't sing. Because of the extreme cold, Genya's Rondon wasn't able to stay by Genya's side while fighting against Duma. The abilities of the second Upper Moon were far too great for their level. Mutiru's spy couldn't do much against Duma, and even the Mist Hashira himself couldn't keep up with Duma's movements, even being able to know what he will do next. At this level, without the Hunter's mark, they are easily outmatched. But both Hashiras do everything they can to make sure everyone in the village escapes alive. When Duma notices this strategy, he uses his Pokemon's suicidal ability, self-destruction, knowing that he would be the only survivor. Soon, with a gigantic explosion, the village completely blown up and surrounded by snow is all that remains. Duma stands, surrounded by the members of the Love Hashira, whom he devoured while regenerating and walking back to his lair. Thanks to the destruction of the village, Muzan prepares to invade the Demon Slayer core, as he is one step away from eliminating those who stand in the way of his plans. Meanwhile, Tanjiro and his friends are assigned to investigate the Swordsmith village, looking for any survivors who might need help, exterminating the demons that might be around, with the goal of eliminating the survivors and anyone who returns to rebuild the village. While the hunters were searching for survivors and enemies, Tanjiro finds Iorichi's training doll because of the explosion. It was malfunctioning and would activate on its own against Tanjiro this time. Since he was less prepared, Tanjiro would have been in trouble if it weren't for his Charizard, who set the doll on fire. Thus, he finds Iorichi's legendary sword, with a special stone embedded in it that glowed and resonated through the blade, and takes it back to the hunter's organization. When Kagai explains to Tanjiro about this stone using information that was left in the ancient scriptures by the former Hashiras, this stone allows Pokemon to undergo a mega evolution, making them even more powerful, able to rival legendary Pokemon, something that would be extremely useful in the final battle. Against Muzan, this special stone would be assigned to Gyomi Himejima so that he could make his Pokemon even stronger, with a mega evolution, thus becoming against Muzan. But look at how the village was destroyed. Kagai knows that Muzan will come to finish the job. Soon the hunters begin intensive training and Shinobu joins Tamayo to create a cure for Nisco and the Onis. So when Muzan invades the Hunters Corporation and takes everyone to his infinite castle, the race to find Muzan and decapitate him while he was recovering from the poison becomes easier thanks to the Pokemon who can fly, thus forming a fast search team against Muzan. With Tanjiro and Charizard, Sanemi and Salamence, and finally Obanai and Noivern, Jomei, Rengoku and Tomioka would meet Kokushibo. Surrounding him was an Oni Pokemon who circled the room with an overwhelming presence. It was Rayquaza, a legendary Pokemon capable of shaking the entire Infinity Castle. A fierce and hard-fought battle. Jomei tries at all costs to achieve a mega evolution with his Tyranitar, but since it wasn't working, all they could do was fight against Upper Moon 1 with all their strength. And here I ask you another question. Why isn't the Mega Evolution Stone working with Jomei's Tyranitar? Soon I will answer. While Entei and Rengoku supported the Hashiras in the battle against the Oni, making every fire breathed from his mouth deadly, Suicune and Tyranitar took care of Rayquaza. The battle is tough, but Kokushibo is caught by Entei's flames with half of his body set on fire, meeting his end by Jomei's blade. In the end, Rayquaza is also defeated by Entei, who joins the Pokemon battle, incinerating the dragon that had been frozen by Suicune. In the other room, Duma fights fiercely against Shinobu, Kanao, and Inosuke. Thanks to the support of the Pokemon, Duma is defeated by a powerful combination. Moving on to Tanjiro's team, they fight against Nakimi and achieve a victory. The Infinity Castle collapsed with the defeat of the ONI, even though Muzan was at a disadvantage thanks to Giyu and Rengoku's legendary Pokemon. He had conducted experiments on Pokemon, whose abilities could surpass everyone else's. And with his Oni blood being modified, he would become the perfect Pokemon to put an end to this war. Muzan awakens Mewtwo, a psychic Pokemon who surpasses everyone, having his abilities strengthened by Oni blood. The battle is uneven, Muzan fighting against all the Hashiras together after Tyranitar's defeat by Mewtwo. Charizard, aware of the stone, takes it for himself, keeping the promise that he will surpass all his limits to save Tanjiro and Nisco from any threat. And so it was done, my friends. When Muzan poisons Tanjiro with his blood before the final blow to the hunter, Charizard sees him lying on the ground and enters a direct battle against Muzan in total fury. Charizard's spirit connects with Tanjiro's spirit, and he undergoes his Mega Evolution, transforming into Mega Charizard. Muzan recognizes this evolution from his nightmares. The legendary hunter Iorite once possessed the same Pokemon long ago, the very same one that caused him so much harm. And if it weren't for his cellular multiplication, he would be dead, and Charizard was only able to achieve this Mega Evolution due to the specification of this stone, because these special stones are designated for certain types of Pokemon that require a bond with their master trainer. So, filled with fear and dread, Muzan immediately calls for his Mewtwo, who fights fiercely against Charizard. Being overpowered in the battle by the Pokemon, the Hashiras take advantage of Muzan's desperation to counterattack him with the Pokemon that are free from the battle against Mewtwo. They all join forces against Muzan Suicune, freezing the tentacles of the King of the Onis, the flying Pokemon putting pressure on him from the skies, and finally, Rengoku's Entei burning Muzan until there isn't a single living cell left. While the battle between Charizard and Mewtwo was happening, the Pokemon is freed from Muzan's control. Thanks to the defeat of the King of the Onis, the war finally ends with Mewtwo freed. He decides to follow his own path. And finally, both Pokemon and humans are free from Muzan's grasp. Finally, Tanjiro, Nezuko, and Charizard can live their lives full of peace and joy once again. And this story has come to an end. Did you manage to guess all the Hashira's Pokemon? Comment below which one is your favorite Pokemon, and don't be sad that this story has come to an end. I picked out this other story here, which I'm sure you're going to like. Don't forget to help me reach the goal of 200,000 subscribers by sharing this video with your friend who's a fan of Pokemon or Demon Slayer.